Hello, everyone that's listening. Welcome to Turtle Talks with the Marine Museum. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We have a very special guest from Turtles Kingston, Mabyn Armstrong, who's going to talk to us a little bit. We're just dealing with a slight feedback here. There we go. Bear with us. This is our first time doing our own virtual talk, so we're dealing with the technical difficulties at the same time. So for those of you who don't know, the Marine Museum's mission is to connect people with a maritime heritage. But that heritage isn't only about the social and economic history of the region, but it's also about the environmental heritage. So we deliver a number of programs that focus on environmental science in the Great Lakes and invasive species. And last week, our COVID-19 weekly challenge focused on local ecosystems and the threats that they face. As most of us, or some of us, this time of year as turtle season, we thought we'd ask Mabyn Armstrong of Turtles Kingston to join us for a lunchtime talk to talk about her organization and the local turtle populations. So just to give you a better idea, Turtles Kingston is an informal organization that responds to the plight of turtles in the city of Kingston and surrounding areas. For those of you who don't know, Kingston is located in the middle of eventually significant wetland. So there's many conflicts around that arise between development and the environment. Turtles Kingston was created in 2014 to help defray the cost of the installation of exclusion fencing for the first hotspot through various fundraising initiatives. They received a number of funds from the Ministry of Natural Resources, the city, and public contributions. Turtles Kingston remained dormant until it's relaunched in 2018 by Mabyn Armstrong. Mabyn has since moved to Kingston area in 2014 and had to travel through a prominent wetland daily on her way to work. The wetland was actually one of the 5 hotspots identified in 2012, and that has also had the highest road mortality. She had abhorred the carnage that she witnessed every day during the nesting season and vowed to address the plight of the turtles. She began her research on turtles in 2016 and says she is now a PhD in turtleology. She has since retired in 2018 and devotes herself to full-time to the cause. She relaunched Turtles Kingston in the early spring of 2018, starting with the creation to sensitize and educate the public. The goal was to create a Facebook community that could be motivated to take action in the cause for the turtles. The Facebook community grew very rapidly, 3,200 members, which is a great thing to see in the community. The Facebook page has reached well over 1 million people, and the main objective continues to be the mitigation efforts of the remaining hotspots identified in the environmental report in 2012. Without further ado, I'd like to ask Mabyn to come on and talk to us a little bit about Turtles Kingston and what we're experiencing in Kingston and surrounding areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Michelle.
Oh, wait 1 second, Mabyn, we have you on mute.
Okay.
And
there.
Go ahead.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you very much.
We're still not here.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead. You're good. You're good.
Just want to say hi. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. It is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. It has taken me down roads, pardon the pun, that I would never have expected to go. I appreciate the introduction as to the history of Turtles Kingston. Yeah, that situation that happened in that particular wetland that I had to go through every day was just, I couldn't believe it. It was like a war zone. And I thought, my God, something has to be done about this. So the most effective thing to be done in situations of road mortality is mitigation efforts, which is a threefold area. First is exclusion fencing. And the exclusion fencing is installed to direct turtles to eco passages. So that way they keep the wetlands connected so that the roads have fragmented, keeps them connected. And the last thing, the third part, the exclusion fencing, the eco passages, and the third part is the alternate nesting sites. Because of course, if we've deprived the turtles of having access to the roadsides, because they love to nest in the gravel that they find there because it's warm, it's exposed to the sun, it enables their eggs to incubate. So then we have the hatchlings. But unfortunately, especially on the roads, less than 1% of all turtle eggs make it to sexual maturity, mostly because of predation. So that is a major issue. The other issue that contributes significantly to the peril of this species is that they are late bloomers. They don't come into sexual maturity till anywhere between 15 and 20 years. So at this point, for a snapping turtle, for example, it can take 60 years for her to replace herself. So for every snapping turtle that is struck on the side of a road and killed, you will not see her replaced for 60 years, not in my lifetime, and I don't think in your lifetime either. So this is perilous. You combine that with the lack of survival of the hatchlings, and you've got the most imperiled vertebrate species on the planet right now. They are on the road to extinction. The main reason is habitat loss, and I will refer to it not as development, but overdevelopment. That particularly in this city, they've encroached on areas that should never have been encroached upon, building housing developments basically right in wetlands. It's abhorrent. So there's very little protection, unfortunately, for this species, and they have great difficulty in maintaining their numbers. Second to that is road mortality. Well, Ontario has the densest network of roads. Someone said at one point in the world, just the way that these roads are so dense. But we also have a huge number of wetlands. Well, roads and wetlands do not mix. So we have extremely high road mortality in reference to turtles that come up on the roadsides to nest. So that is a major issue, those two factors alone. There are a lot of other factors, poaching, unfortunately, the horrific illegal trade of turtles, most being sent to China, to Asia, for various reasons, medicinal purposes. So that is being scrutinized more tightly now as well, but it still happens because there's a lot of money in it. So that's why endangered species, usually the location of where they are found is not disavowed. There are 10 species of turtles in Canada. There are 8 species in Ontario. All 10 species, all 8 in Ontario, are classified as species at risk. The Midland painted turtle was added to the list in the spring of 2018. It is yet to be, quote, ratified on the provincial level as endangered, but it is a species at risk. So you can see they're in big trouble. We have 5 species in the Kingston area. The Blandings turtle, the snapping turtle, the northern map turtle, the musk turtle, and the Midland painted turtle. They're all in big trouble. The Blandings turtle is rated as threatened. It's a higher classification than the northern map, the painted, or the snapping turtle as being special concern. The Blandings turtle being classified as threatened means that its habitat is supposed to be protected. So there's lots of conflicts with that, with development, because when an area is developed, if there is the presence of Blandings turtles, then considerations have to be given to that habitat. One of the goals that we have is having people report their encounters. There are simple apps that you can use on your mobile phone that are fun to use. And the data that's collected from your turtle encounters is invaluable because it can encourage a municipality or a government to take the steps to mitigate. We're in the midst of mitigating a wetland on Collins Creek. And had there been sightings, confirmed sightings of Blandings turtles, it might have facilitated our efforts in having that area mitigated. So we strongly encourage the public to please access those apps. You can download them. And like I said, they're great to use with children. It's a wonderful educational tool. And again, I say the information provided by those apps is invaluable. So the main the main goal of Turtles Kingston, after what I personally experienced on that road in 2014, is mitigation, is the implementation of the exclusion fencing, the eco passages, and the alternate nesting sites. In the interim, it was, okay, so that's a long-term goal because that requires funds. That's going to take time. What can we do? So I came up with the idea of having what I call a turtle trauma response program. So what that is that I secured the confirmation of the participation of 10 Kingston veterinarians that are located north, south, east, west, central, and the Kingston Humane Society. So that way, if a member of the public is, you're on your way to work, you're in a real rush, because of this city is located in the middle of a provincially significant wetland, you're going to encounter turtles on roads in places where you could never imagine. So the turtle's injured, what do? You can't take the time to drive the 20-something miles west of Kingston to Sandy Pines Wildlife Center, where we take the turtles to be triaged. So you're going to leave it and you're going to feel terrible. And that turtle is going to die a horrific death of dehydration on the side of the road and from its injury. So this way, you're never more than 10 minutes from one of those locations. So you bring the turtle in whatever you can to one of the vets. They are supplied with bins, large bins, small bins, depending on the species of the turtle. They're lined for the comfort of the turtle, and the lids are punched, aerated, so that there's ventilation. So one of the staff from the veterinarian clinic will take the turtle and put it in one of the bins. They will contact us and we'll dispatch one of our 30 volunteer drivers. And last year we transported 55 turtles, all within an hour of receiving the call. So that is important because it means that the turtle was administered pain medication, because they do have nerve endings in their carapace, their upper shells. So when you see them cracked by having a car roll over them, they're in pain. So that way they're transported to Sandy Pines and they receive trauma treatment as soon as possible. We also encourage the public to transport dead turtles, and people sort of go, why would you do that? And turtles are cold-blooded species. Their metabolisms are very slow. So oftentimes you cannot determine if they're dead or not. The Ontario Turtle Conservation Center, which is the only uniquely turtle trauma response and rehabilitation hospital in North America, they will actually put them on a monitor to determine if they're dead, because they might look like they're dead in every sense of the word, but they are not. So that is one reason for transporting dead turtles. Just in case they are not dead, they can be humanely euthanized. And the second reason is usually the turtles that we're seeing now are gravid or egg-carrying females. So in the case where the turtle is presumed dead or the trauma is so extreme that there's no chance of survival, those eggs can be extracted and incubated. And last year, I think Sandy Pines had over 800. There's other organizations like START that actually on the roadsides confiscated, like dug up over 10,000 turtle eggs to be able to incubate them, in trying to give a boost to the turtle populations, because they're at that level of crises. So the Turtle Trauma Response Program has worked really well. We have a phenomenal crew of volunteers that are heartfully committed to transporting the turtles. And we're really, really proud of that program, because it enabled us to respond to the turtles that we're seeing injured on the roads. We also launched a nest protection program. One of our supporters had mentioned Lee Valley. And so I contacted Lee Valley Turtles Kingston and spoke to the manager and said to her, this seems to be a good fit because you have a woodworking shop and you could construct the turtle nest protectors. And right away she said yes, to the point where there was like an awkward minute of dead silence on the phone, because I'm going, wait a minute, she said yes. So it's been a phenomenally successful program. Last year, we sold over 250 nest protectors. We are a philanthropic organization. We don't do any fundraising. We actually fundraise for Sandy Pines. Any monies that are offered to us are deferred to Sandy Pines. And so the nest protectors, the condition is that they had to be sold for the cost of the materials used to make them. So that's $15, which includes the 4 galvanized spikes, 12-inch spikes that are used to anchor them. And it includes the tax. So that was tremendously successful. This year, unfortunately, it had to be toned down because of COVID-19. So, but they did graciously, we supplied the materials. They did make 26 nest protectors, which sold out. The last one sold last week. And all of the monies that were collected was donated to Sandy Pines. So technically it should have been about $375. It ended up being over $530 because people would throw in a 20 rather than a 15. So we were really proud of that as well. There's other areas that we got involved in as well that we weren't expecting to. Turtles that get caught in commercial fishing nets in the Kingston area. And the first time I got a call about that or a message was in 2018. And I was like, commercial fishing nets. So that took us into a whole other area that we worked with the gentleman at Glenora, who is the head of the fisheries department for the lakes. And he is just, I call them yes people. They're the kind of people that listen to your story, and before jumping to a no, they consider it and they go, yeah, I think we can do something about that. Well, he did do something about it because the 2 conditions that we put forth were obvious, were common sense. One was they had no idea of the numbers of turtles that were being caught in the nets. They had no idea of the species. Were they threatened? Were they special concern? What classification were they? And the second thing is they have to change their equipment. They were using hoop nets, but there was no breathing space. So the turtles were getting caught in the nets and drowning horrifically. One of them that we saw, it was horrible. It was a massive snapper. We ended up having 3 like 25-pound snappers. I'm not kidding. And one of them expelled her eggs in the net because she was so traumatized. So, but he stepped up to the plate and he put conditions on license that came into effect a year ago, last May. So the fishers now have to report the number of turtles they're getting caught in their nets and the species. But more importantly, when I say caught, they had to change their equipment. They had to put jugs to create breathing spaces. So the turtles would get caught in that and then they could just release them. So that was a huge change in that industry. We were very grateful for that. So that will help contribute to their populations as well. Lots of information. The Facebook page, we're up to almost 3,300 now, committed supporters, and we've posted over 3,000 educational and informative articles, and we've tried to present articles to take complicated information and present it in a way that anyone can use it, like how to safely move a turtle. Everyone knows the myth about the snapping turtles. We always challenge that myth because people like, Facebook can be like a water cooler situation where everybody likes to talk sensationalism. Well, sometimes that doesn't help. And when someone's making points and comments saying, yeah, they'll bite off your finger, we immediately intervene and say, no, this is not true. Because the more that those myths are perpetuated, the less people are likely to help, going, I'm not going near that thing. So there are simple ways to move a snapping turtle. We post all of that. We also offer the video to show exactly how it's done. And so that has been very successful. It is a myth. They cannot bite off your finger. They cannot break broom handles. The power of their jaw is less than that of a human molar. So it can hurt. The worst part about a snapper, they don't let go. So if that ever happens, they usually try to tell you to get it to water, because in water they'll release you. So the damage is more from, bruising and hanging on to you, because they do have a pretty powerful bite or grip. They don't have teeth, so they don't bite. They have a a bill, like a bird, really. So anyway, that's the first thing we really like to do with snappers, is to dispel that myth. I've picked up so many of them now. I look forward to the spring to get to seeing them. I had a really feisty girl yesterday. Oh my God. And I had to carry her to a water source, and she was not happy. She was only about 10 pounds, but in all honesty, with her resistance, she felt like she weighed 100 pounds, like an anvil. And we use, because we're on such busy roads, we use what's called the pizza hold method, which is the easiest way to pick up a snapper. It's usually a way that intimidates people because you are going to carry them. So, but once you've done that the one time, I can guarantee you, you will never pick them up any other way. And it's such a simple way of just securing their back end by holding on to the bottom part of their carapace, or their tail, not by picking them up by the tail, because that will damage their vertebrate system, because their tail is part of their vertebrate system, which is fused right into their shells. And so you just anchor it with your less dominant hand, put your dominant hand, slide it underneath as if you're taking a pizza out of the oven. You lift it up. Usually when you get it about a foot from the ground, it might give a good snap, but if you're prepared for that, no problem. Once you get it up to like waist height and you secure your elbow and your waist for support, depending on how much the turtle weighs, they usually go, they just go in your arm, in your hands. As long as you don't move them around too much, they'll stay like that. They'll stay pretty dormant. Then you carry them across to wherever it is they have to go. The good thing about that on a busy road is people can see you. You're up, you're not bent over, you're not dragging something, you're erect, you've got the turtle in your hand, everybody can see it. So 99.9% of the time, people stop. People stop and allow you to cross the road with that turtle. When you go to put it down on the other side, when you get her about a foot from the ground again, as far into the grass or off the road as possible, sometimes they'll give another snap. So you're ready for that, because you certainly don't want to drop them. But just a funny note in reference to dropping them, my husband was actually road monitoring. We've been going at 5 o'clock in the morning because we feel that with this intense heat, turtles usually need rain to stay cool, but it also softens the gravel, the substrate for them to dig into. So we haven't had any rain. So we've noticed that with the extreme fluctuation in temperature from night to day, that it's creating condensation. So we think that they're going out in the mornings because with the condensation, it's softening the gravel. So this morning he had this big girl. She was probably a good 16 to 18 pounds. And on this particular road, there's, I think they're called gabors. It's like a wire cage where they put big pieces of stone the size of your head, and it prevents erosion. Well, she climbed up on that. Well, the drop to the water is 10 feet. She just jumped off. She just dove off. She was the second turtle that we witnessed doing that. So you'd think, wow, what's their perception of height? Or she just crawled right up there, looked over the edge and go, yeah, over she went. Just hysterical. They're good climbers too. They can actually climb up and over a fence. That's why they usually have to put an O-ring at the top to stop them from doing that. But they're a fascinating species. They're a wonderful species. I count myself privileged to have gotten to know them now as well as I have. There's all kinds of other things. There's advocacy issues. Turtles Kingston is, we have made a number of accomplishments, but the accomplishments that we've made is more to try to get people to take on some of the topics that we've addressed or issues we've addressed. I'm not a biologist. I am just a citizen scientist, if you want a technical term. And it's just my passion that has been able to bring me to where I have to have accomplished what we've accomplished. Nothing more than that. So everyone that's involved with turtles that has passion can accomplish anything. And there's a variety of things that a person can get involved with that can really make a huge difference. We can't be everywhere. I tried to launch like organizations in Perth Westport, but that fell through because it takes a person that has initiative to get the job done. Gananoque, the same thing because of the Thousand Island Parkway, because there's a lot of incidents there. So we can't be everywhere. Our focus is Kingston. Our focus is mitigation for that particular wetland, which is Kingston's #1 hotspot. which is highest road mortality. So there's a lot of areas. And so our thing is to educate. One of the things that we did is my husband and I, like I said, this is a philanthropic organization. I won't tell you what we've invested in this, and it's not because we have the money. It's just that's the way we choose to spend it, and we see that it makes a difference. So it's worth our while to see that happening. We've distributed over 18,000 I Break for Turtles I Break for Turtles bumper stickers. And the joke is when you go to Kingston, you can't go a day without seeing at least 2 or 3. Because we're so close to mitigation, this year was the year we were going to flood the city with bumper stickers because we wanted to show that this city has an incredible population that strongly support this species that are on the way out, because they are on the way out. That's not an exaggeration. Some estimates are even giving it to 2040. So the key thing about them is that 2.7% of the world's water is a freshwater source. 20% of that is found in Ontario. So we have an obligation to keep our freshwaters clean because turtles are called your janitors. They eat vast amounts of carrion, which is decaying flesh, fish, whatever, decaying vegetation. So they are called the janitors because they are your freshwater source water cleaners. If you remove them, those systems will implode and you're likely not to get them back because of the imbalance. So they provide this incredibly humble service. And the only thing they ask for in return is survival. That's it. So we know that water is the next oil. We have huge corporations like Nestle buying up water rights around the world. We have huge populations migrating in the search for fresh water. So considering the fact that Ontario is 20% of the world's freshwater source, we really have to step up to the plate. This just isn't turtle hugging. This is, if you want to think of it in terms of the way that it can impact you as the motivation for doing something, well, there it is. It's going to affect your fresh water source. So that's why we're also trying to educate people as much as possible. The bumper stickers was a sensitization campaign, which we feel has really worked. And of course, all the posts that we make on the Facebook page. I mean, turtle nest protection, interesting turtle facts, how to move a snapping turtle, how to move smaller species of turtles, the peril of the turtle populations, litter. That one wetland that we're addressing, there were 1,500 pieces of litter. Someone had come along with their garbage bags and just thrown them in. They had split open. Predators had gone through them. It was unbelievable. Public Works stepped up to the plate and did an ace job in cleaning it. Last year, we on pitch-in day, the commissionaires, one of the commissionaires is a volunteer driver for us, and he got a crew of people out there in the pouring rain cleaning up the wetland. The year before, I did it myself, which was after $3,000 of physio to my right leg. So we also ask, please don't litter. Don't throw your cigarette butts out the window. I've picked up close to 20,000 cigarette butts since the past 3 weeks. And litter attracts predators to the roads. So if there's banana peels, apple cores, whatever, they go up there and go, oh, wait a minute, I smell something else. Hors d'oeuvres. They find the nests and away we go. We're not allowed to protect the nests on the substrate of the roads. We can protect them 75 millimeters into that. This year, all the girls have been laying on the outside the guardrails. So we've been able to protect them all. We didn't anticipate having that many. We've installed all 16 nest protectors that we have. We're having more made this weekend, anticipating the next 10 to 15 days. We're going to have more girls coming to the ward for a party. And so that's also highly successful. I have to say here that there's areas that we have set precedent. One is, and we are not going to take full credit for that precedent. When I first started this, I'd look at the roads and I'd see these big tire tracks going down the sides of the roads going, oh my God, they're driving on top of the nesting lines and spraying with glyphosates, which I am a big, I'll do anything to discourage anyone from using those products. They're highly toxic, highly consequential. Please do not use them. Roundup is a trade name. So they were spraying the vegetation. They were using something called granular sealant, which is a black tar, trying to deter the vegetation from growing up around the guardrails. And it's like, oh my God, imagine a female turtle going into that with her big claws. I couldn't get it off my gloves. So you can imagine the impact that it would have on a nesting turtle. And she's burying that stuff in with her eggs. It stays molten in the hot sun. So I was sending texts to the 2 counselors for that area, both who happen to be biologists, which is wonderful, who were forwarding them on to Public Works. Well, Mr. Bill Linnon from Public Works, who's the director, is another yes man. He is phenomenal. He listened to me. He suspended all or rescheduled all road maintenance from the entire turtle season, from the end of May to the end of September, including the hatchling season. That is amazingly, that has set precedent. We've got other communities like Lanark that are now following suit. Well, if Kingston can do it with as much roadage as they have, with 125,000 population, we can do it. So they stop spraying, they stop cutting, and they do all of that around the turtle season. Of course, unless there's an emergency or a road washout, or if they have a property that happens to be on Unity Road, for example, where there's the wetlands, where the entranceway, they need a sight line. So then, yes, that has to be mowed for the resident that lives there. So he's to be commended. I'm so grateful to have him as Director of Public Works. He has certainly made the initiatives that we've taken a lot easier to implement. I gave a talk to the lake countries because at that time the understanding was that nest protection could only happen on private property. So one of the people that was in the workshop was frustrated because she has a lake property and she's out there and she's seeing turtles nesting on the road and going, why can't I protect their nests? This is crazy. So she contacted a rep from the MNRF who more or less the answer he gave her was, well, if it was me. So she told me she got a yes. And I'm like, a yes. So I contacted him. He explained to me why he came to that conclusion. But he took it a step further. He contacted the legislative specialist in Peterborough, and he had him retranslate the law in layman's terms. And absolutely, yes, you can protect turtle nests on public property if you get permission from the landowner, which isn't that complicated to do. And if you use a particular kind of nest protector, when we launched with Lee Valley, I thought, okay, so what is the nest protector going to look like? So I thought, this is not my area of expertise. As I said, I am not a biologist. I contacted Parks Canada rep who was working with the Canadian Wildlife Federation, and they were creating a nest protector. And I said, you know, it really makes sense that we're all using the same one. I don't think it's wise that we're out there using, you know, this size, that size. So we went with that design, which was standardized. Well, coincidentally, the stipulation from the MNRF was that we had to use a nest protector that was recognized by the CWF. So it was like, oh, thank God for that. So that worked out really well. They're 2x2. They have a galvanized hardware cloth, 1/4 inch. They have 4 hatch exits around, 2 inch by 1 inch. So the hatchlings can leave of their own accord. So that worked out really, really well. So I walked the roads with the Director of Public Works and said to him, okay, if we were going to install these on the roadsides, where do you feel comfortable? So we established a parameter, and thank goodness every single nest that we've encountered so far has fallen under the jurisdiction that we can protect it without there being an issue. So that we're hoping is going to contribute to the populations as well. I mean, an older snapper can have as many as 50, even more eggs. The older they get, the more prolific they are. They actually are nesting right up until the day they die, and they can live up to 150 years. we're not seeing big girls like that because a lot of them are unfortunately never made it, but it's still a fantastic injection into their populations. So we're really, really happy about that. There's cautions for people for recreational boating and fishing. That's a big thing too, because propeller injuries. We see a lot of northern map turtles that like the lakes and snappers that like to go under the boats for the shade, and they're opportunistic hunters. They just sit there and something goes by and they get it. No, they don't chase you in the water. As a matter of fact, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. You might step on their back thinking they're a stone and they might snap at you then. Or if they see wiggling toes or fingers, they might mistake that for a moving fish. But they are not going to come after you. They are not aggressive. In water, we have a lot of video of people going up to them and they're looking at them curiously, like, what are you? Wow, you're bigger than me and your mouth isn't as big. But so they're wonderful creatures. So just tap your boats before you get in to start the propeller. There's all kinds of precautions like that. Fishing, that's a big issue. The OTCC did a number of x-rays for other reasons, and on a very large percentage of turtles, embedded hooks. So don't cut your line, whatever you do. If you think you can't remove the hook by cutting the barb or using barbless hooks, try to get the turtle into your boat so you can call the OTCC. They can send a turtle taxi to transport the turtle to them so that the hook can be removed surgically. There's also lead poisoning issues with sinkers. So there's all of this information is available on Facebook, on Turtles Kingston Facebook. So we invite everyone certainly to like our page, to share it as much as possible. We're also very involved in recognizing events like Environmental Days, World Turtle Day, which is May 23rd. Whatever events that we can to sensitize and educate people on the issue of turtles because they are in such big trouble. Road monitoring. Well, like I said, we're on day 27. We've been out there like 8 or 9 hours, early morning, late evening. Last night we left at 10. We still had 2 nesters that were still going at it. They are nocturnal. Then my husband, as I said, was out there again today at 5. And so we cannot, unfortunately, do a call to action. There are liability issues. We can't schedule people on the road. If we were a research organization or something like that, then we'd have the insurances to cover that. The issue isn't liability for the person, like signing a waiver form. That's not the issue. The issue is if that person got spooked and stepped back and created a head-on collision or whatever. So, I mean, this has never happened, but in the event of, so we have people that just show up. They just show up. We have high-res vests that will lend them for the day, and because of COVID-19, obviously take them home and wash them. But and they'll just spend as much as time as they can give. And I don't care if it's holding up a road sign that says, please slow down. On that particular wetland, we've got a number of signs that we have made that say, watch for turtles, and also say, please slow down. That's a 60K zone. The other thing that we did that set precedent is in November, I started with council to have that turtle crossing made into a no passing zone, a posted no passing zone. If it's posted, then a fine can be issued and points taken off. If it's not posted, it's just a recommendation. So it absolutely does not make sense to have a turtle crossing area that you can pass in. I mean, you know, the terror is when somebody slows down because there's a turtle on the road, the person behind them gets impatient, pulls out, and then we know the rest of the story. The other thing too is tailgating. People don't leave enough room in between their vehicles to be able to react. So if the first car doesn't get it, the second car certainly will. So when you're going through a wetland, please be extra vigilant. We say, slow down, look ahead, give them a break. That's our motto. Because like I said, it's 60 years for everyone that you clip. And sometimes it's not done intentionally. It's done out of negligence. So just to be more aware in those situations. There is two studies that were done that confirm the same statistic. I personally think that it's higher than that, but 2.7% of strikes are done with intention. The person intention. I've witnessed it. I've had it happen to me twice, right in front of me. And it's a horrible thing to go through. And you have to sit there. I worked with missing children. I worked with profiling. And when that person drives away, you're going, that person needs to be profiled. If they drew some kind of perverted pleasure out of taking an aim and striking a turtle, witness or no witness, then that's pretty pathetic. So they are out there, unfortunately. So we're out there road monitoring. We know people will get out of their car. Although yesterday I had a turtle in the middle of the road, way down. I was trying to get to her. This is like 7:30 at night. And I get 7 cars that go by that have gone around her. And I have 5 of those cars that stop, roll down their windows. And by the 3rd and 4th one, I'm going, got it. And it's like, why didn't you stop? Why didn't you pull over? And why didn't you get out and move the turtle? Because by the time I get up there, I might be too late. Whereas you were right there. So just pull over. We have all the videos, all the training necessary on our Facebook page. Please look at it all. It's not a difficult thing to do. With snappers, you can put a light cloth or towel over their head. If they can't see, they can't snap. So it gives you the chance to either drag them onto your car mat, drag them across the road in the direction that they were heading, because that is imperative, get them off the car mat and let them go their merry way. So you don't even have to worry about picking them up, like the pizza hold method that I was telling you about. So there's ways to do it for everyone. If they don't want to touch the turtle or whatever, there are ways that it can be done very efficiently. The only reason we like the pizza hold is, as I said, in a high traffic area, you're highly visible. So we've also consulted. We consulted with the city on the third crossing. And that was a federal, municipal, and provincial initiative, infrastructure. And they did pretty much implement, they had crossed the T's and dotted the I's, but there were other suggestions that we made that they did put into effect, because that particular area where the third crossing is actually where the commercial fishing nets were located, coincidentally. We have tracked a number of turtles that are using that as a channel. So we don't know the long-term impact that that bridge is going to have on the turtle populations, because it's always a question of fragmenting their habitat. We're also involved in 2 other development initiatives that are right on the water or near a wetland that we're still involved in trying to get the proper mitigation efforts put involved, because they're too close. They're way too close to the populations, but that's a hard one to argue in a city that seems to be obsessed with development. So yeah, the no passing zone, that set precedent. It's the first time in Ontario that a no passing zone has been established for wildlife. It's only ever established for sightlines. So that, again, we're hoping that people can take it to their communities. So if they have a turtle crossing, they can have that implemented there as well, because it's already been done. So it's been facilitated. We also, Public Works again responded over 2 years ago. They were dragging those big, huge signs there in the spring. One of the councillors was harassing them to install 2 of them. So they put up the permanent solar flashing ones, which we were very, very grateful for. And then fundraising initiatives that we've done for Sandy Pines as far as the nest protectors. I'm also an amateur artist, so I designed a card of a snapping turtle called Sandy the Snapper. And there's a Kingston coffee house graciously sold the cards that raised over $800 for Sandy Pines. And we also organize an annual luncheon to thank our volunteer drivers and other turtle supporters. And I had an art sale and at the Kingston Coffee House at their downtown location and on Princess, and it raised all the funds that I needed to do the luncheon. So that was exciting. It's nice because they don't get to see each other or meet. So it's a wonderful opportunity to get together and tell stories and everything like that. I know there was one question that somebody asked, what is your wildest or favorite turtle story? I don't know if you want me to tell that now or if you want me to open to questions or.
We've actually put quite a few questions come in, Mabyn. So I think I'll go through a couple of them, and if you have a chance at the end for the turtle story one, because you've told a couple of them already, which is terrific. But thank you very much so far for your wonderful talk. I think I've learned a lot, and I for one definitely break for turtles as much as possible. And I think
thank you for that.
Hoping to share that message is a great initiative. Thank you.
And I'm going to plaster the back of your car with bumper stickers.
I've been meaning to get a hold of one, so I'll keep an eye out for them.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let me just check the question we had come in on page here. So the first one had to do with it was situational. They had a snapping turtle lay her eggs in their field each year, but often the crows seem to get to them and either grab the eggs or the babies.
Yeah.
So is there anything that they can do to give these little ones a better chance?
Of nest protector. Nest protector. And there's questions. There's a thought that the sojourn of the hatchling, and this is going to be a hard one to prove research wise, that it's a developmental stage from their nest to the water source, which is is the water source of the mother. So there's an issue. Well, should you pick them up and take them? Because then you're depriving them of that. So the most important thing is safety first, because they're in such big trouble. Which is why, for example, all those eggs were harvested off the sides of the roads and incubated. Even if it ends up that it is a developmental stage that they're missing, their numbers are so bad that they need every intervention possible. So in that case, protect the nest. And then when the hatchlings come out, you can help them to the water source. You can collect them and take them to the water source. You never put them directly in the water, the hatchlings. You choose a shoreline that has vegetation for protection, because for the first couple of years, 3 years or so, they're hiding. The first year, they're extremely vulnerable because their carapaces aren't hard. They haven't hardened yet. So they're like hors d'oeuvres for other turtles, for herons, whatever else. So you just put them on the shore, in like a shaded area where they can hide, and then they go in the water of their own accord, and hopefully it's a water area that does have vegetation grow that they can hide in once they get in there. But you never plop them right in the water.
Great. So carrying on from that, there was a question actually about the nest protectors. I think they were curious about the building plans for nest protectors. I think is on your page.
It's posted. Yeah.
Yes.
It's actually at this time of the year when it's crucial, we have like 5 or 6 posts that we just repeat, because we don't want people to have to get to the page and scroll. So we just keep on repeating them so that they're always readily available. I should intervene and say that the Turtle Trauma Response Program is on hold because of COVID-19. We had to suspend the program. We will reactivate it when the protocol is lifted. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen for this nesting year, but it will be reinstituted, for the next turtle season for sure. So in the interim, because of people's availability, maybe not working, whatever, we are relying on public participation to transport the turtles themselves to Sandy Pines.
Okay, great. Well, that answers the question about responses in terms of COVID-19. Thank you. So the other one we had was protecting nests from predation on own property. So I guess natural predators in terms of nesting on property.
On your own property? Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
If there was any suggestions you had about protecting the nests besides the nest protectors?
Not really. I mean, there are issues like, for example, lake country, there's people that, there's a turtle, she's nesting right in our laneway. So if a turtle is nesting in an area that for you is inconvenient, you can take sterilized sand, mix it with 1/2 inch to 1 inch stone, create a substrate as an alternate nesting site, put it near your laneway in a sunny spot to entice the turtle to nest there rather than your laneway or your barbecue pit. We just got 2 contacts this week of 2 people that they're nested in their barbecue pit. You cannot move turtle eggs. You have to be licensed for that. So they're an endangered species. They have to be handled accordingly. So you just have to do that to create an alternate nesting site. And it also gives you the opportunity to protect the nest. So it works out quite well.
Okay, I have a couple other questions here. Let me just read. I think some of them have already been answered throughout your talk. So we have protection mating, nesting, hibernating lands. The impact of industry on these areas, so aggregate mining, wind farms, suburban spread. How can we be proactive, which you talked a lot about the proaction and what we can do as individuals in terms of legal and political avenues.
Write letters, send letters. I mean, unfortunately, we have a premier that seems to be allergic to the environment. You know, Ontario, what is it? Open for business. Jackie Litskis, who's the head of the biology department at Laurentian University, has a horror story. Her student, to the north, there's a wonderful refuge for Blandings turtles. Now, Blandings turtles are threatened. So this area is pristine. Well, with the pay to slay, as it's called, Doug Ford's development initiative, they want to mine that area for substrate. So they can go in and annihilate that population and give a cash donation somewhere else. I don't think you can get it any stupider than that. You're dealing with a threatened species. Just because it exists in Minnesota, like, it is so irresponsible. Unfortunately, I will get political here because he sold the province out before he was elected. They stopped them from developing the Greenbelt near Toronto because one of the developers happened to record when he promised that he would allow them to develop 65%. Like, that's insanity, sheer insanity. If COVID-19 hasn't taught us anything about us fooling around with Mother Nature, she will always have the last word, always. So it doesn't have to be this ridiculously consequential. There are other methods of development without exploiting limited resources and things that you are not going to get back. I mean, it's the old Joni Mitchell song, you know, Paved Paradise. So absolutely do what you can, like even for mitigation, like for us locally in Kingston, send letters to the Kingston Council saying that you're very concerned about the turtle mortality in the city and that they do have to step up to the plate. They haven't done anything since 2014. They should have been putting monies away in preparation for the next hotspot. So there's a lot of room that has to be done. So use your voice, use your pen, use your hand, right? Because they can't speak for themselves, that old adage. So that would be tremendously appreciated.
Okay, thank you. And it was kind of followed up with any collaboration with First Nations groups, Tyendinaga, Bay of Quinte, Mohawks, and Waterkeepers. If you have any collaborations, well, I guess you spoke a little bit about collaborations with local organizations and surrounding areas, I should say.
We have in 2018 more so, this year not, because normally we would be attending various organizations that have, you know, organize events in the parks and things like Olin, for example. And we did speak to a representative from the indigenous populations in reference to what to do with turtle carcasses, because this is Turtle Island, and turtles play a significant role in indigenous history. I mean, the history of the world is based on Turtle Island, that the world was created on the back of a turtle. So we have great respect for that. So if the turtle is known to be dead, that there's no eggs to be recovered, then it's disposed of in nature so that it becomes fodder for another creature. And that, on the advice of the indigenous populations, was the most respectful thing that we could do for the turtle. So we have consulted on that level. Other than that, I personally haven't had, with the work that I've done, we acknowledge, usually World Turtle Day, we acknowledge the Turtle Island story, because I'm very sensitive to that. And I think it's the most integral and profound way to acknowledge the history of turtles, is through the indigenous populations and what the turtle represents to them.
Great. One last one, I think, tied in with the tracking reporting sightings. Just to clarify, I think it has to do with the tracking, the app you spoke of for tracking reporting turtle sightings. But I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, is the torontozoo.com / Adopt a Pond.
Adopt
Is that the link? Is that the one you were
Turtle.
referring to?
Yeah, and the app is called Turtle Tally, but there's also an excellent app that is used by most researchers, et cetera, is called like the letter I, Naturalist, Naturalist. We strongly recommend that one.
Okay, great.
That would be great. The other thing, just in reference to nest protection, I just wanted to say is that, you know, there are other things people tell you to go out and urinate on them, because when the female lays her eggs, she releases a liquid to moisturize the eggs before she buries them. That liquid gives off a powerful scent and is like a neon sign to the predators. This is where you're going to find the nest. So that's where that comes from, to try to dissipate the smell of the nest. The nests are usually predated within the first 12 to 24 hours. So if you do have one on your property, you don't have a turtle nest protector, but you can get access to one, you just grab your barbecue or oven rack and throw it on top of a heavy stone. And that's going to protect it for that night. And then you install the nest protector. The thing about the nest protector is you're going to have them for years. So if you have turtles nesting in your property, invest in them. There are most definitely worthwhile. You can, Sandy Pines is sold out as well. The Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre does have them for $25. You can still get them from them in Peterborough.
All right, thank you very, very much. I think that's all the questions we have from everyone who joined in. I'd like to, first of all, thank everyone for joining, and thank you very much, Mabyn, for joining us today. It was a really informative talk, and I think everyone greatly enjoyed it from the comments that I'm seeing. It's great to see everybody come forward, and especially at this time of year when, as you say, it is turtle season, they're out and they need us. And so thank you very, very much for joining us. Learned a lot today for myself.
Thank you for having, and thank you everyone out there for all the support you can give.
Thank you. So I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody, and hope to see you again soon for another Marine Museum virtual talk. We'll let you know when the next one takes place. So thank you very much. Right, so I've ended the live